Today we're going to be talking about some techniques and methods you can use when hiring software developers to make sure you get the very best people on your team, giving your company an advantage. So stick with me.
Let me explain. Here it goes. A is for ambition. Be what I want to be. See past the situation that's in front of me. Doubt is an enemy.
So whether you're looking to hire a .NET developer, JavaScript, Python, senior developers in the US right now are in high demand, and salaries are running about $110,000, varying per region, so it's not cheap. Hiring the right developer is going to be an important asset to your company, while hiring the wrong developer can not only be a costly mistake, it can actually affect the morale and productivity of your whole team. So how do we hire a developer the right way? Well, let's break down the process. First thing you want to do is you're going to make sure your recruitment funnel is big enough and you're attracting enough people. Now, what do I mean by recruitment funnel? Well, much like a sales funnel, we're talking about a funnel shape that gets larger at the top and smaller as we go down. So the top layer of our recruitment funnel is awareness. People that have heard about our job are aware of it. The next stage in our funnel would be an application. So we have to make sure enough people are aware and interested in our job so we get enough applications into the next stage. So how do we go about doing that? Well, we can use recruiters, we can use job ads on job boards and LinkedIn to increase awareness and make sure the top of our funnel is big enough to attract good candidates. So next, we're going to want to create a list of all the frameworks and technologies that are being used in our project. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, imagining you're programming in some mainstream language like Java or C#. Well, these languages can be used to create a whole host of different applications. From anything from an internet-connected fridge, an IoT fridge, to an app running on my mobile, or to a web page. And depending on what the exact domain of your project is, that will have dictated which one of these frameworks and technologies your developers have chosen to implement the solution on your project. And it's important we list these because a new developer is going to have to know these technologies and frameworks to become a productive member on your team. Well, how do you get that list? Well, you can simply ask your existing development team to write it out, or if you have a systems architect, you can ask him. So now that we've got this list of technologies and frameworks, we're going to use it to filter down the potential hires and make sure we only take the very best candidates onto the next stage. Now, often what you'll find is developers list a huge number of technologies and frameworks on their CV, and if that's the case, we're going to have to take out the ones we're really interested in and really break it down to make sure they have the experience and the competence. Sometimes developers have a shared code repository they can give you access to, a GitHub account that lists their previous projects and shows just what technologies and frameworks they previously used. Plus, you can get a look at some of their code. Now, it may be the case that when you've put your CV out, you get loads of candidates come back in with exact matches to your requirements. And if that's the case, great. You only need to look for the most experienced people and take them on to the next stage. However, it may also be the case that when you put your list of requirements and skills out there, you've got some kind of framework or technology that's just not popular. It's industry specific, or it's just new. In that case, I would typically just set out a little bit of time when the new developer joins the project to train him in the skills he's missing. So let's move down to the second stage of our funnel, which is people actually applying for the job. So they're aware of the job and they've applied for it. A lot of recruiters will push all of their candidates forward for an interview, but you've got to filter at this point, because doing a technical test and a technical interview, and someone's going to have to review that technical test, it's going to take a lot of resources out of you and your team. So the more you can filter this stage down by the CV, have a look at what previous experience they have a look at what companies they've worked for, have a look at their education. You want to filter this list down to no more than 7 or 8. That way you won't waste a ton of resources doing a bunch of technical interviews with people that you're probably not going to hire anyway. Now it's important to take those filtered CVs from the previous step and look beyond the CVs by giving them a technical test. This technical test will verify the skills they've listed and highlight any weaknesses. No matter how good a developer sounded in the previous step, if they can't complete our technical test to a high standard, they might not be what we're looking for. So what should we actually give for our code test? Well, over the years, I've done a bunch of code tests for different companies, and quite often it's some off-the-shelf, generic code test for programming language Y. And what these usually consist of is recreation of some kind of algorithm where you've got input B and you need to produce output C. Now, while these are great when you're starting computer science, they get a little bit monotonous as you go on. What I find is far better to keep a developer's interest, especially when there might be a whole bunch of code tests when they're looking for a new job, is to make your code test domain specific. Now, what do I mean? I mean relevant to your business. So for example, imagine you had a restaurant booking app. Your code test could be to create some kind of table plan for an imaginary restaurant and mark the tables off red or green if they're booked, and take table bookings in via some kind of input panel. That I find these kind of tests show the developer a bit more about what your company, what it'd be like working in that industry, and generally get a much better response. Make sure you find someone who's a good cultural fit for your company. Now, that's not just the technical skills they have. Make sure they have the soft, the human skills to get along with your existing team and company. You might find someone who has great technical skills, but they just have a bad attitude and bad interpersonal skills, and that can destroy the whole development effort on your whole team. However, taking the time and due diligence to find someone who is a good cultural fit may mean that you've got a developer that sticks with you for the long term and is a lasting positive influence on your company. Well, I hope this video has given you guys the skills and confidence you need to go out there into the marketplace and find the best developers to work in your company. That you have a job available. The next part of the funnel . Hola.